Welcome back to Sahara TV. My name is Rudolph Okonkwo. Something changed in the world and in the way Nigerians view Nigeria in the last 10 years. While some Nigerians are left wondering what changed, the likes of comedian Basket Mouth and Governor Adam Oshimole of Edo State have no doubt that it's no longer their grandfather's world. This new world is called social media. Some have called the people who run this world as internet warriors. Today, we have rounded up around the globe some of Nigeria's best known social media commentators. Some of them have tweets that can reach 500,000 people in one day. So they are here today to help us discuss the impact of social media on Nigeria. And with me here, let's start with someone with me here in the studio, is Zainab Usman. Welcome to Sahara TV.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
You are a freelance writer and you're also a PhD candidate at Oxford.
Yes.
We'll come to that and how you find the time to do what you do. But joining us via Skype is Egghead Odewale. Egghead, welcome to Sahara TV.
Hello, Rudolph.
Now, Egghead, yeah, I saw that you are called a social media personality and a political commentator. I didn't know about that term. We've gone very far. Welcome to Sahara TV, Egghead.
Thank you.
Okay, and we also have Tina Armstrong Obonna. Tina, welcome to Sahara TV. Oh, she's gone. Tina is gone. We try to connect back to Tina. Tina is a commentator and also a regular on our Skype calls. And then we have Japhet Omojua. He's a blogger and a political commentator. And he's known for using social media for advocacy. Japhet, welcome to Sahara TV.
Thank you. Thank you for hosting me.
So let me start by asking all of you, what do we call the hashtag for this discussion we're having? Did anybody come up with one?
We should probably ask Omojua.
Omojua, what is the hashtag?
Let's just call it Sahara TV.
All right, all right,
Yeah.
all right. So, I'll begin with you. Something changed, and most people don't know what changed. What happened?
What happened, at least in Nigeria, was that people now have access to the internet. And that happened primarily because of GSM, mobile telephony, which made people able to access the internet with their mobile phones, unlike what you have perhaps in North America, in Europe, or Asia, where there's broadband and people can easily connect with their PCs. In Nigeria, mostly a lot of people connect to the internet with their mobile phones. So that is what happened. And with greater connectivity, you're able to get access to more information. With more information at your disposal, you're able to know a lot of things. And with that, again, it translates into having a lot of information on governance, on the public sphere, on democracy and issues like that. So that is what is happening. Nigerians now have access to a world of information, and Nigerians are choosing to use that information for many good reasons and for bad reasons as well. I think that is what happened.
We're going to talk about those, both the good and the bad. Let me come to you, Japhet. Let me ask you, have you been monitoring what the government, people in government, their reaction to social media, and how do you characterize that reaction?
Their reaction is, most of the time, it's thoughtless. It's plural. It's very childish. But I would say also that things are improving on their part. Unlike before, where you could predict that someone like Reno Mokri would just be throwing proverbs and subliminals at individuals, when people like Dr. Abati, who should know better, would be telling people to shut up and asking people if they were stupid. Now he's doing lest we forget. You may not agree with some of the things he's tweeting. You may even have a counter opinion, but it's an improvement on the very, very childish and irregular, abnormal, irresponsible content that they used to release. So yeah, on that side, they're doing better now.
All right, we are going to watch a video of Ruben Abati, what he said about social media here last week. And when we come back, we are going to talk to Egghead, and I understand that Tina just joined us back. All right, let's see the video of Ruben talking about how the government is going to deal or handle social media in 2014.
But you know, we have a febrile, hypertensive opposition that seems to have taken charge of the social media and all that, and they keep harassing us. And we are going to address. Last year, January 2013, I said, look, we will not give the opposition a chance. They still got a little chance during that year. But this 2014, we're going to match them line by line, word for word. And what Nigerians must realize is that we're dealing with politics. And as we move closer to 2015, a lot of people will come online, they will use the terrestrial media to tell it a lot of lies. But we will not allow them to get away with it.
Okay, all right, that was Ruben setting up what I think is government agenda for 2014 and dealing with social media. Egghead, what do you think? Do you think that the pushback, expected pushback, will make the kind of impacts that they want to make?
I'm not sure because I wasn't able to see the video showed.
Okay.
For me, I think interestingly, earlier today, just about an hour or two ago, I met personally with Mr. Shem Obafaye, the Oga at the top himself. I think he had some kind of breaking point on social media usage in Nigeria. And I'm happy to note that he has taken it to good stride, and it has not affected him, neither has it affected his work in any way, and he's happy about it. But that, for me, signified some measure of, epochal change in the way social media has been deployed in Nigeria. But going back to political engagements on social media, for me, government response has been sort of less than strategic, but spontaneous, has been ad hoc, has been more emotive than something that has gone through a properly thought out process. Nonetheless, it has afforded citizens, some unveiled opportunity to engage with government at different levels, particularly those who have offered the opportunity. I mean, despite the fact that the manner or mode in which social media has been adopted by government at just the central point of government in Nigeria has been, more or less tokenistic, it is important to note that that direct access that one has to these characters in government, is unprecedented, and one must give that kudos to social media. However, one would like some, more institutionalized, approach from government. For instance, why do I have to go to the presidency to get information about the Ministry of Communication Technology, which is supposed to be, the driver of such kind of inclusion of new technology in government services and provision of a channel of communication to government agencies. So, I mean, there are different levels. And again, also at the subnational level, you see that not many state governments or local government agencies or ministries are adopting these measures because, as you have stated in your preface to this program, there are many governments that still see those who are on social media as angry children. I don't know, Ruben Abati that you mentioned earlier used a particular clause to describe those who are on social media. Perhaps some of you would remember that. So these are the kind of children of anger. Thank you, Zena. So these are the kind of things that you see from governments in Nigeria, whereas it is actually these platforms these channels that should have offered government the opportunity to sell its programs and to also collate citizens' own, contributions to some of its agenda, some of its programs. It can also be the channel through which citizens are mobilized at effective and affordable cost to both government and the citizens. But unfortunately, we have what we have. It's important that citizens are driven this process. Governments at different levels have been forced to respond to citizens' actions or reactions to different policies, because of social media engagement. So it is important that more, painstaking attention is paid to what is happening on social media at different levels, not just, by the presidency, or by those who are at the center of power.
Okay. Now, Tina, you are in Nigeria, and I want to know, are you seeing any impact of social media on the way the media operates in Nigeria? I mean, the traditional press.
Yes, here in Nigeria, the social media is like a threat to conventional media. For example, there's an incident, and, before maybe the radio, the TV, and the print journalist is able to get there, somebody that is at the scene of the incident is already tweeting. Somebody that is at the scene of the incident is already giving a live report. So social media is like what keep the conventional media or keep the conventional journalists on their toes. For example, let me put an incident that happened during the plane crash of Governor Agagu, when the body was being taken in the crash here at the airport. I live close to the airport. I walk close to the airport. And that particular day I was home. But people were there already tweeting that something has happened. So before, my station was able to know something has happened, the information was already out there. And I always tell people that social media for me is the first point where I go to search for news, though you might not really get you might not get the full story, but you get the lead, something that will lead you to the main gist or the main scoop of the story. So for me and for most of my colleagues, social media is like a competition. If you're a journalist in this time and you are not on social media, I wonder what you're really doing. So social media just keeps you on your toe. You just need to keep being innovative, changing, being creative to move or walk in this time and season that we are.
All right, let me come back to you. Can you give me instances where social media has changed the way a story has been seen by the people?
Let me see. An instance.
Yeah, a story. Yeah, that.
Sorry, I have a bit of a cold.
Okay.
I think one instance is the incident Egghead mentioned, the Oga, the top thing. A lot of people took it to be very funny, very comical. Here you had this person representing security apparatus, a government institution, I think it was a National Civil Defense, that agency. So he was there, he was being interviewed by journalists, and something as simple as his website, he was asked for the address, and he just didn't know. And the fact that he couldn't even think of making something up or just being truthful about saying, oh, I have forgotten the details, I will get back to you or something like that. He just had to be evasive. And I think that really got to a lot of Nigerians. It was like he was a representative of a certain establishment, being that he was a person, he was a senior person, but he didn't know something as basic as the website. It probably also meant that maybe he wasn't even computer literate. There are so many other things there they were funny, but they were very serious as well. So I think that affected perceptions of Nigerians regarding how they see government officials. I mean, it's something a lot of people already know, but then to have it captured live on TV and then shared, tweeted, sent via BBM and so on, I think it affected Nigerians' perceptions.
Mm-hmm. Now, let me come to you, Japhet. From Alo 4 incident to Governor Oshomole's go and die, did you notice any kind of change in the way the social media pushes its own agenda?
I think I can't say change in terms of any form of strategy, maybe change in terms of intensity, because these days, unlike just the fact that things happening on Twitter or Facebook, because most people have access to smartphones, so things happen also on other channels, BlackBerry, WhatsApp, and all these other ones I don't even know about. Nothing has changed in terms of how things happen. People are much more reactive. People are much more about noise. It's still a herd system. Somebody comes and says, this is what is happening, we no go agree. And it's just the conventional we no go agree attitude that we see at universities. The difference now is just that it's about people tweeting or dropping posts on Facebook and all that. And also the fact that before you know it, what you thought was just an ordinary thing, especially if you are like in the case of Governor Oshiomhole, if you are the one directly involved in a negative way, you might actually be answering a question for something that you thought had happened and had gone. And social media just brings, even I know, I have an experience of how social media could bring something that already happened on TV to start all over again. So nothing has happened in terms of how this thing happens. The difference is just that there are more people and more people are finding their voices.
Now, Egghead, let me ask you, because there was this video of a police officer being taking bribe from somebody, and that police officer was fired, we understand. And you would think that that would lead to several videos, because everybody, they all have videos in Nigeria. I mean, they all have phones that could take pictures and videos. You would think that that would mean that there will be more of such, but that's not the case. In fact, what we had was that policemen are now beating up people who try to take pictures or who are trying to. So do you think that this movement sort of is going to hit several roadblocks, including websites that are being attacked now by government interest? How do you see this in the next 10 years? Okay.
Well, I'm not sure. I mean, again, I'd like to flip back a bit to before Alu4. Perhaps you've forgotten that for me, the first real social media engagement in terms of mass protest was when the lady Okeke, I can't recall her first name now, was molested by a couple of Uzoma Okeke.
Oh, yeah, the one that died in Lagos.
No. The one that was molested by the Navy officer's aides.
Okay, that's true.
The ratings, yeah, okay. 4 naval ratings in Lagos.
Yes.
Together with their commander, I think Lawrence Arugidade or something like that. And they went to court. I think she was awarded the 100 million naira cost, by the court. This is a lady who happens to be the daughter of the Sergeant at Arms at the National Assembly, who was a former colonel. So, I mean, evidently the rich also cry. But if you look at the experiences from then till now, you realize that still there are a lot of materials that have been kept out of social media. Because, as Japhet has said, people are still largely reactive. They are still largely emotive about their responses to some of these actions, that are experienced daily by Nigerians. But still on that, it is important to mention that whether or not you have a camera on your phone, and you pick your phone to record or to, pretend as if you are recording a particular incident, the reactions have been largely, aggressive, have been offensive by either the police authorities or anybody that you are trying to picture. Someone sent me a note on Twitter some couple of days ago about how he tried to take a picture somewhere in Lagos and that he was molested. And when I retweeted that, a couple of other people said, oh, they had the same experience at that particular spot. It shows that whether the person being recorded is the police or just some ordinary citizen in the street, they recognize the fact that there is a platform, or there are platforms when if you post this information or these messages or this video, there's some reactive responses that you get that then, sort of backfires and you can be fished out. I mean, we've had experiences where information flows from social media and gets into the street or into formal, engagement. You mentioned the issue of the police. There were actually 2 videos of 2 different police officers that were recorded. So now the police is very careful in terms of who is recording them. But it also shows that citizens then begin to grow, into some more creative entities in which you either find, creative ways of covering or videoing, recording these videos, or you find alternative means rather than use your phone to video what is being done by the heinous act of these characters. But be that as it may, if the responses from social media has been less and credible, has been less and provocative to ensure that there are institutional actions, or responses to these concerns, to these protests, then I'm sure people would have forgotten. So there's still some thinking behind it that you have some hope. If you have a recording, which of course is evidential, you have that recording, then you can take it into the streets for action. But I want to also mention that we still need a lot of reforms in terms of the legal instruments in the country. I'm aware that the Evidence Act in the country does not permit the admission or admissibility of any evidence just because it is out there, no matter how credible it is. You still have to have a source, or creator of that particular video. For instance, the Alufo video cannot be presented in any court of law as a credible evidence in a case if you don't have the author of that particular video. These are some of the obstacles that the Evidence Act or legal instruments create for people or for human rights activists who want to take this up legally. So, and a lot of times the authors of these videos or creators of the videos don't want to come out in public for fear of reprisal attacks or being attacked for creating such kind of videos, because essentially the author of that video is probably also culpable for not taking actions, that would have safeguarded or provided safety for the victim of such acts immediately or at the point of being attacked.
Okay, Tina, let me come back to you. There's some particular incident, David Oyedepo, the Bishop Oyedepo, and the slapping of that lady in church. It was one incident where the focus, I believe, was not on a government official, but on somebody who has authority too. Now, let's go from there to Basket Mouth and his joke about rape. Do you sense, this is my own reading, that the activists or people who are on social media are moving away, not just about talking about government people and holding them accountable, that they are also expanding it to people like Baskema, who is a comedian, and many people were threatening that they won't go back to see his show unless he apologizes properly. So what do you see the trend going towards?
The trend analyzing both Bishop Oyedepo and Basket Mouth is people of influence are being watched. People of influence are being looked. Their comments, their reactions to issue. For example, Basket Mouth was like, for him, it was just a joke. But people are saying, no, a joke, but at the end of it, there's rape. At the end of it, you're talking about women. So are you saying if a lady goes out for date after 1, 2, 3 times and she doesn't, give in to your demand, you should rape her? And from just a mere joke, reaction came, and like up to today, I guess he has done like 2 apologies so far. So it's becoming a thing that if you're a person of influence, you should check what you do. In some few years back, something like that would not have made any noise. Would not have gone as far as people saying we have to do a campaign, we have to sign petition, we have to send the message to UK and tell them O2 Basket Mouth show in February should be suspended or should be boycotted. So now it's going beyond just tweeting or going to Facebook and putting anything. Anything you put, as for you're a person of influence, people read it, people interpret it. And before you know, reaction sports. People are it's like one would just say for jungle justice. You know, somebody just say ole ole. So now you tweet and somebody just say, oh, this tweet is talking to this kind of people. It could be to vulnerable people, it could be to women, it could be to children, it could be with people with disability. So now, as a person of influence, anything you're doing, you're being watched. Like recently, somebody went to a church in Lagos, like, let me call Pastor Chris Okote's church, and he was trying to take pictures, and there was CCTV. He was being monitored, and immediately he was taken outside the church and told to delete the pictures. Why? They know these pictures will go places and it will bring responses from people. So now people are being careful. They know the power. Though, like the other two commentators, Egghead and Omoju said, yes, shouting, emotion, but it's creating awareness among the populace to know that everything you do could get to a place, and it could get to a place that it could have an effect on you. We talk of that of Oga at the top. We talk of that of the police officer. We talk of just the recent one, Justice for Alice, the lady that was beaten by her employer, and at the end of the day, social media took it up, and before you know, it got to the presidency, and I guess something is being done at the moment. So anything that people do, as far as you're a person of influence, people are interpreting your message, and your message have response to the general public.
All right, we are going to talk about the downside of social media, but first of all, let me ask, connected to what Tina was saying, so do we have any kind of follow-up, or is the social media operating like the traditional media, which will not go back and in many cases to see how the progress is on that issue? For instance, the Allo 4, after the initial case, is anybody following up, or did we move on to new things and other issues?
That's a very, very good question. First of all, I don't think social media is the same thing or is quite similar to traditional media. They're very different, and mainly because with traditional media, stories that are reported have more information, more background information, a lot more in-depth research is done. But with social media, a lot of what you get is very instantaneous. It's like, in a way, there's a race to be the first to report this or that, or also because the people that are doing the reporting are ordinary citizens. You can do it anywhere, anytime with your phone, your tablet, whatever. So because of that, then, the fact that it's very instantaneous and spontaneous as well, there's little research done. It's very reactionary, as one of the speakers here said. And because of that, once that initial sort of outburst goes down, then people move on to something else. It's like this thing happens, everybody is emotional about it, everybody is angry, there's this collective expression of outrage, and then something else happens, and then people move on to that. So the average person's attention span is very, very limited because there's just so much information you want to read and tweet and Facebook, everything. And again, because of that, real serious issues that deserve a lot of commitment to them, they deserve people to commit time and energy to follow them through, maybe to take a certain case to court. For example, the Alu incident or several of the rape cases we have seen videos of. Nothing like that really happens. The attention for those things goes down and people move on. And for me, I think this is where I find a problem. Even with this case of basket mouth, for instance, even though, yes, I totally see where people are coming from, I'm also, as a woman, I'm definitely not, I would definitely not welcome any sort of joke that makes light of rape. It's a terrible thing. But at the same time, this sort of spontaneous expression of outrage, it masks underlying issues. What is it that makes this sort of rape culture very acceptable to us as a society? Why do men feel entitled to rape a woman if she doesn't give in to their advances after 4 or 5 dates? They have a sense of entitlement. Why is that? It's because maybe they feel they spend a lot of money. Why do they spend a lot of money? It's because of the way relationships are in Nigeria. a lot of money is expended. If a man spends money on you, he expects something in return. You know, these are issues that need to be addressed. And this is where, for me, I'm quite critical of social media. I'm critical of these issues that just come up and everybody jumps on them. And then after a few weeks, people move on and they forget about it. I'm very critical of issues like that.
Now, let me, Japhet, what are you worried about when you look at the world that you are a major player in, the social media? When you look at how it operates, like what she was talking about in terms of how do we put the energy together towards a particular purpose that will have a conclusive end?
I think my biggest worry is that I think I've said this before. We are doing a lot, we're talking a lot, we're acting a lot. There's a lot of passion involved, but all of this looks like we are just masturbating. There is nothing, there is no form to this thing. It's not strategic. When you look at the different struggles of different generations and different societies and different countries, there is a form. When you look at what the ANC did, when you look at the African-American civil rights movement, when you look at even the guys in Turkey or even the guys in the Arab world, there is a form. But with respect to social media, I see a lot of competition for popularity. I see a lot of attention, of course, deficit disorder. I see a lot of disparity in terms of what people want. Of course, all of us want a better country, but I also see that we don't even know exactly what we collectively want. Like in the world, for instance, there are universal human rights. With respect to Nigeria, we don't know the universal realities of Nigeria that we collectively want. We collectively are confused. I have to say that. So when I say we are confused, you have to understand that I'm part of that mix. What worries me is the facelessness of social media. Until December, until last year, I was fully into the internet. I used to assume that everyone on every Twitter handle, every Facebook page was a human being. Of course, something happened on social media. I got catfished, and that strategy changed altogether, because between that experience and now, I've spent more money on phone, making phone calls, than I've done my entire life. I now call people because of social media. So we cannot afford, if you don't invite people on your screen, on SaharaTV or Channels Television, if you don't invite people and they cover their face to analyze Nigeria, why should people talk about Nigeria facelessly? Why should we allow people to get away with saying anything they want to say and just hide their faces? Of course, there will be people like Anonymous who have their own responsibility, and Anonymous is anonymous. That is their identity. So one of my biggest worries is people that hide behind AKAs, people that hide behind funny Twitter handles to say all sorts, to malign people, to commit crimes and all of those things. Of course, I'm personally interested in fighting that battle, but I'm just one person. So that worries me. What also worries me is the fact that we assume too much about our powers. We get carried away about social media. Look, I would be the first person to tell you that social media is powerful. Well, I would also be the one to tell you that this thing can do far better and far more than we're currently doing. But I see us celebrating too early. It's like you have a 90-minute football match and your team is playing well, like the old Arsenal. They are passing around and passing around and tapping around and tapping around. But it's the first 10 minutes, and you've not even scored a goal. Nothing has happened. With respect to Nigeria, we have not achieved anything. Nigerians are still oppressed. Yeah. Nigerians are still oppressed. People still go to jail for posting things on Facebook. There was this gentleman, is it Tonye? He's in jail as I speak to you. The paramount ruler and governor of Bayelsa State has jailed him for what he posted on Facebook. There are other Nigerians that are not as popular as you and I, because if they pick me, of course, people will talk. But there are people that are not as popular as you and I that try to take pictures to post on Facebook. They get arrested. People don't hear things about these things. People are still collecting 150 billion naira just to be in the National Assembly. Do you understand me? There are 20 Nigerian states that don't have as much a budget. If 5 million Nigerians, if the average population of a Nigerian state is 5 million, about 120 million Nigerians don't have as much as those guys in the National Assembly. So social media is doing a lot, but we cannot afford to even begin to assume that we're achieving results. We are not. We need to organize ourselves. This thing is not organized, and it's frustrating because we can really do so much more. We've not done anything compared to what we can do. So that's, for me, is the biggest worry, how we think that we're doing something and when we've not done anything.
Thank you so much. Okay, let me come to you because it's connected to what Reno or Mokori has been pushing this idea that there should be a standard, there should be ethics. And of course, we hear from people like Labran Mako saying that people are insulting the president on social media. Now, there is an aspect of it where if the social media cannot organize itself, the government, especially those in countries like Nigeria, will try to do something. Do you think there is a way to have that freedom and kind of push off government intervention eventually?
Okay, thank you. I think before taking up this question, I'd like to elaborate on some points as mentioned by Zainab.
Okay.
One is that historically, there's no particular new media that has replaced the order, the previous one. I mean, radio did not replace word-of-mouth communication. TV did not replace radio. Internet did not replace TV. Certainly, print media at some point in time there. And definitely, social media is not going to replace any previous media channel that we've had, previously. What you do is just complement each and one another, to different degrees. Having said that, on follow-up actions, on some social media experiences or incidents that we've had, I can tell you for free that, yes, I agree that it is instantaneous, I agree that it's reactive, I agree that it's largely emotional and it lacks research. But there's the experience of the ABSU in which people came and mentioned that this happened at Abia State University. The Abia State government denied it. People from Abia State denied it. And none of us, and this is, some tendency for the average Nigerian, none of us believed that the government was saying the truth, even despite that the university authorities too, denied that such thing happened in the school. About a year or two later, some man came out from River State that actually the woman that was the victim in the ABSU rape, happens to be his wife, and some of the people who were involved in perpetrating such dastardly acts, were actually his relatives, who knew him, and that he didn't see the video until about a year or so, about 14 months or so later, that the video went viral on social media platforms across the country. A lot of people did follow up on that story. The case, I think, is presently in court, even though it's being solved by different legal technicalities. But I mean, just to emphasize the fact that, there are some issues that people follow up on. I mentioned earlier on the case of the lady, Uzoma Okeke, who was molested. And it was only because some, good Samaritan, covered that incident on a camera phone from our office, even though it was far, but it was clear enough for the court to accept that as an evidence, in that process. It means that there was a follow-up, and the lady got judgment for it. I think the case later was settled out of court because initially the commander, involved in that incident wanted, some out of court settlement. Having said that, going back to the question about how, Reno Mokiri and a host of other people are proposing that there should be regulation for social media. Personally, I think that should be a regulation, on the human rights, fundamental human rights, freedom of expression of the individuals involved. I think social media has evolved a new set of anthropology of the people, particularly those who usually would not get involved in certain issues now get involved. If the president is being insulted, and so what? That happens everywhere. It's just that the manner of insult, the culture, the language, that is being applied has to, evolve over time. And the president should know that he is just one individual. There are people, who believe that his actions or inactions, omissions and commissions as the president of the country affect their life one way or the other. So he should rather, address the issues that are being raised by the people, by the citizens who are supposedly his electors, rather than focus on the insults or invectives or vituperations that these people, pour on him daily. I mean, nobody gives a hoot about Labaran Makwe. Nobody gives a hoot about Ruben Abati or Reno Mokri, for instance, because these are not elected representatives of the people. The person they want to talk to, the person they want to review his actions or, undoing, is the president of the country. So the president, perforce by virtue of his position, is bound to receive slaps and knocks, from the people in the country. So you cannot regulate their speech, you cannot regulate their thoughts, you cannot regulate their freedom, to disseminate these thoughts, these expressions through different channels that they may elect to use or to adopt, and that is a right that is guaranteed by the Constitution of the Federal Republic, to which the president himself swore to defend. And I believe the likes of Reno, the likes of Abati, the likes of Labaran, also must subscribe to whether they like it or not. Having said that, I think it's also important that there is a citizen-to-citizen, regulation of these actions. There are people who have evolved creativity. There are people who have evolved innovation by virtue of their interactions on these social media platforms. There are people who have evolved a new culture of interpersonal relationships, just by virtue of being on social media. Omojua just mentioned some catfishing, even though I caught up on that much later. But the fact that he had that experience would entail that he not only, begins to extract or extrapolate from that experience some manner of behavior or conduct, in the future, but also it helps other people to be able to, manage how they relate with people, whether known or unknown, and how to be able to detect, that they are catfish or, personalities on such kind of platforms. So it is not for Reno or Reno has his right to hold such kind of thoughts, but I'm sorry, Omojua. Reno Mokri, not Omojua. Reno has his right to hold such kind of thoughts, but definitely he doesn't have the absolute right to be able to force on people how they should think, what they should post, how they should post it, or what manner of language they should use. I think people naturally would evolve into what they want to become. If you are scientific, your language is perhaps scientific. If you are a lawyer or a legal person, your language will be legalese. If you are in the anthropology, arts, social engineering, your language would form to that. And if you evolve from the gutter, and a lot of people who are not literate are now on WhatsApp. What kind of language do you expect those ones to use? It's Babakekwe kind of language. So you cannot regulate it. You can, through assimilation, acculturation, build them into new models of citizens. But those kind of attitudes, those kind of behavioral changes that you want, cannot be enforced. It can only be, promoted, and, you expect the people to imbibe them, over time of their own volition.
Okay, we are really short of time, but let me come to you, Tina. You're a freelance writer, and you're interested in the copyright of your works. How is the social media handling third-party materials and copyright issues?
If I should talk of copyright issue, you probably let me just look at it that people handle your story, or people handle content as copy and paste. At times, you publish a story and somebody gets to use your story without permission, and fine, the person uses it without permission, and there's no
credit,
no attribution to your story, and you get to act, and the person at times feel, they go as far as telling you they're doing you a favor, which I believe, in line with intellectual property, it's a default. You cannot just take the work of a person without permission. So as a freelance journalist at times, I remembered I did a story and I was not contacted. I was just Googling one day And I found out my story was somewhere. And when I got in touch with the person, I was like, oh, I saw the story. He said, yes, we published it. I said, but I was not informed. He said, yes, it was in line with what we wanted, and I guess we did you a favor. We took it to a wider audience. And for me, it was a slight, notwithstanding that it was published. But the issue of maybe say you want to sue somebody or you want to engage someone for something like that is something that is not yet concrete. Let me put it that way. For example, you have a musician, let me say in Computer Village in Lagos, people's songs are being played for them to be popular. But when they are known, when those songs are played without permission, it becomes a problem. So the fact or the issue of
Okay, I think we're having problem with Tina's line. When we get her back, we continue. How do you handle something like that? Yeah, how do you handle something like a copyright infringement and things like that?
Well, the thing is, it's something we all have to live with, I think. The fact that once your material is out there on the internet, people will automatically take it and repost it or publish it on all sorts of websites. Sometimes well-established media organizations or even news websites, they contact you and they ask for your permission, which is the right thing to do. But in many cases, you see a lot of these fringe websites, they take your material and they just use it. And honestly, you can't even go after all of them. So it's just something you have to take in your stride. But I think where a lot of people, I personally have an issue with, is when people take your work and then they reproduce all of it or parts of it and they do not give you any credit. That is absolutely wrong. And I think something like that happened to me once. I wrote something and someone copied everything and sent it round to a lot of people and even published it on his, was it a website or blog, did not give me any credit, and I contacted him. I threatened him and then he said, oh, he just forgot to include my name. He was going to do it. So it happens. It's something we just have to live with, unfortunately. But I think maybe as things evolve, I don't know, there might be better ways of checking things like that. But on the internet, it's very difficult to police these sorts of infringements of your intellectual work.
Okay. Tina, I understand that Tina is back. Tina, can you round up your thoughts, because we're running out of time, on what you were talking about on copyright materials?
Yes, in line with that, I was saying it's not easy to compose. Sometimes I sit to write stories and, you know, the story is out. But the time I sit and trying to align my thoughts to be something that someone can read and it will be a delight, that is when the power of intellectual property for me comes to be. You may see a work, it's a finished work and use it. It could be a story, it could be an artwork. But the time the person spends in creating that content is, to some other person that does not appreciate art, means nothing. But to the owner of that work, it is precious. When you say, you used my story without attribution, like, for example, let me say the one of the letter, the Obasanjo letter that Premium Times accused some media houses of using the story without saying, we got it from Premium Times. It's not right, you know, though at the end of the day, it was like trading words back and forth. But I believe people should try as much as possible to give you credit for your work. It's not easy. It could be music, it could be art, it could be stories, but for me, I get pained when I write letters and send mail. I do as much as possible to tell you, it's my work. You did not pick it. It's not something that you saw in the dustbin. It's something I sat down and I wrote. And it should be appreciated, and you should attribute me for it. So,
okay.
Intellectual property is something that is dear to my heart.
Okay, Jafet, let me ask you. You are a brand, I mean, out there. How do you protect that brand? And if someone asks you, what are you selling? What will you say you are selling?
First of all, I think that the fact that people used to steal my work and still steal my work has helped me to really, really go far. I don't fight people. The only people I fight is, for instance, yesterday or 2 days ago, a website published my story. I went there and they credited another website for publishing my own story. And of course, I spoke to them and told them, look, you can't credit somebody for publishing my story, and they edited it. So that has really helped because it depends on what you want. For me, I want people to read my thoughts. I don't care about whether they pay to read my thoughts or not. So if all the websites in Nigeria steal my articles, as long as they put my name behind it, I don't care, because for me, I'm writing so that they can read. So what am I seeking to achieve? I think the opportunity to express one's feelings about issues, whether it's about Nigeria or about football or about relationships or about anything, it keeps one sane, especially when you are the kind of person that thinks a lot about many things. If you don't have a room for expression, you could explode in a different way. So for me, it's a way to be sane, to remain sane with all the madness going on around the world, especially if you are a Nigerian and if you take these things that happen in our country to heart. So being able to write is a form of being able to exist, being able to keep going. It's also a form of expressing my ability. And of course, it's also a form of also promoting my individuality, because at the end of the day, you cannot be a part of change if that change doesn't affect you. It has to start from me. First of all, I have to be the example of the change I want to bring about. So if I'm saying, let us not just be about noise, I have to also ask myself, have I moved from just being a noisemaker to being a creative content provider? Have I moved from just being an angry young Nigerian to adding value through other things in other places, adding my voice to development? For me, it's also an opportunity to learn. I mean, look at the likes of Egged. Whenever I get into trouble, they are the kind of people you always have access to. Babatunde Rosonwo, for Akin, Ogunda Misi, all these guys. So it's an opportunity to learn. It's a repertoire of knowledge you would never lack with all these people. Look at Zainab; she's doing a PhD in Oxford. So it's almost everything you can find. That was why, of course, it almost became like I was almost 100% living on this platform, which of course I have changed. I've gone back to doing phone calls now. So it's an evolving process, and I think that there is going to be a lot to be achieved if we are very strategic about, individually, I'm very strategic about what I want to do with social media. I cannot begin to tell you what I think will happen to global societies with respect to social media. Maybe I should also say one of them right now. In the next 10, 15 years, it might not be Facebook, it might not be Twitter, but the most influential people on the internet are also likely to be the most influential people outside of the internet. It doesn't matter whether they used to be influential before they came on the internet. So when it comes to politics, when it comes to journalism, conventional journalism, when it comes to music, those that can control the conversation with respect to different aspects of industries on the internet in the next 5, 10 years are the ones that would actually determine the flow of trends. That's already happening in some societies, but I'm speaking with respect to Nigeria because our internet penetration is not as much as it is in, say, South Korea or even America. So I'm interested in these trends. I'm interested in the opportunities to learn. And of course, I'm also interested in bettering my own lot as a person. And then at the end of the day, the general common good, if we all agree for that general common good with respect to Nigeria.
All right, thank you. We're really running out of time. Let me come to you, Egged. We're rounding up now. A tweet from you can get to thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. How do you use that power? How do you control, determine what you influence? Or is it just what you think is right?
I'm not sure there's a power of control. I think for me, let me concentrate on myself now. I think it's about creating a niche for oneself. Oftentimes, I get people come to me mentioning that I mean, they want to confirm from me a particular news story. I mean, for first, I've never been a journalist. I don't work in any newsroom. I've never worked in any media agency before. You know, I'm just an active citizen. You know, I call myself a citizen journalist. And I became like a go-to place, you know. for information, breaking news,
Sorry, Eke, let me interrupt you. Do you worry that you are playing a role like that of a journalist and you may not be doing it the way journalists are supposed to do it? Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Are you worried about that?
If I worry about whether or not I play to some rules, I play by some rules, then it definitely means that I'm no more doing social media. It is still social media, that laissez-faire, latitude, flexibility, opportunities, to sort of wriggle my way around issues, not have any box in which, I am put into. I think that is, for me, part of what makes social media uniquely what it is. That I don't have any inhibitions or any obstacles to scale, before being able to post a particular story. Because oftentimes there are stories or behind the news stories that I put out there, which conventional media organs will not be allowed to put out. The time for processing for me is short, even though I do, a couple of checks before posting a story. But once I post it out there, it's out there. And I don't go into details on some of these stories as, conventional media organs would do. Once I put it, as I like to say, on my radar, it's just out there. And because over time, I've built, a consistent and conscious brand in the minds of people, there are a couple of times people come and tell me about other Twitter persons using on my radar. One even accused the other of stealing against radar some times ago. That is because it's a brand that people have now associated with me. Even though it's not patented, it's not registered, anywhere in the globe. Just for consistency, people have, associated this with me, and I recognize that. So sometimes, because I become the go-to person for these issues, I then put, some kind of constraint on myself out of responsibility. It makes me more responsible that I have all these people who will, want to hear from me and rely on my own credibility. And because I am one who is very conscious about the kind of integrity that I put out there, it then puts, additional onus on me to do my due diligence before I post any particular story. That this doesn't mean that I've not had, instances where I have gone off the mark, in posting a story, where possible I've apologized. At other times it has come out that the checks have been done, because sometimes I post these stories and I'm off to other assignments or other offline tasks or engagements, so I don't get to be able to see the comments that people made on these stories. But by and large, be that as it may, I think the fact that these penetrations, if you asked me 5 years ago, I would have thought that Nigerians would have gotten tired of platforms like Facebook, platforms like Twitter now, considering the experiences that we had with Yahoo 360, Plazo, High Five, and a host of others. I would have thought that by now, Nigerians won't be doing Twitter, Facebook again. But they don't only continue to do Twitter and Facebook. Now they have to go. They have Nairaland. They have other, platforms that they interact with now. Even to the extent that email listserv and interactions now, email groupings, have also become social media platforms of their own, and in their own respect.
All right. So, sorry, Eke, we have to round up. Tina, one last question for you. How much time do you spend on social media each day? And do you feel part of the problems that people are facing here that you're spending more time on that virtual world rather than the real world?
I spend the minimum of 6 hours every day. And for me, I believe I gain more. I expand my well of knowledge being on social media or being online, not really social media. I spend a minimum of 6 hours every day. For me, I research, I study, I follow trend of news, and I get to know where it's coming from and what's happening beyond Nigeria, analyze it and localize it, to our own situation. So for me, being online, it's a plus. I don't see that I'm not interacting. It helps me to, it gives me
Okay,
so
Tina, I have to stop you. Your line is not very clear. Now, one final question. So 10 years ago, that was when we had Facebook came into being. Can you project in the next 10 years how the world will look like? What will be going on in terms of what communication will look like?
Wow, for me personally, that's a difficult question to answer because in a way, unlike my fellow participants on this show, I'm not really constantly engaged with social media. For instance, with Twitter, there are times when I go for days or even weeks without logging onto it, and I don't really have a particular strategy on the way I use social media. The only thing probably is that I don't post a lot of personal stuff or things that I do because I have my own other life that I live in the sense that, and this is, I don't mean to offend anybody here by saying that I have another life. I'm in the academia, so that on its own is very, very demanding. There are times when I switch off completely. But going back to the question, how do I see things shaping up in the next 10 years? Well, honestly, it's difficult to say because technology is moving very, very fast. It's advancing rapidly. I don't know, maybe in the next 10 years, we'll even start flying by ourselves. I don't know.
Or maybe our mind will write for us.
Absolutely. But of course, with all these new technologies, the smart watches, the Google Glass, and so on, definitely it's going to be more simpler ways of communicating across time and across space. Definitely, that's what it's going to be.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have to thank our guest, Egghead Odewale. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Tina Armstrong Obonna, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
And Japheth Omojua, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for hosting me. Thank you.
And I hope you all will come back because we didn't get to the point of discussing selfie and so many other things that are out there. But we do this again, probably once a month. And Zena, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. This was great.
When we come back, we are going to continue our show. Remember, coming up, we are still going to show you Keeping It Real, Dr. Damages, The Break, and Inside the Diaspora. So many things, so stay tuned.